President Obama was in Cuba. He addressed the attack for just 51 seconds at the top of his speech to the Cuban people. Then he went to a baseball game. There you see it. He did the wave. Leslie Marshall is with us this morning. Leslie, you're a Democrat? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, about 20 minutes ago, I put on the air an editorial. It's called My Take. And I suggested that what's going on in Europe at the moment, the migrant crisis and the terrorism, is in part the responsibility of President Obama. I know you don't agree with me. Let me spell out my case.
Okay.
President Obama retreated from Syria. He didn't take, they crossed the red line. He didn't do anything about it. Syria fell to pieces. 4 million migrants leave the country and off they go to Europe. Then he evacuated and left Iraq. In comes ISIS, and ISIS is now a threat to the world. Part of the responsibility for what's happening over there is President Obama's responsibility. Tell me where I'm going wrong.
Well, first of all, the reason that people are fleeing Syria would have taken place regardless of who was president, whether there was a red line, and I will agree that he should have been more forceful and kept his word with regard to Syria and that red line. However, we can't look at the real responsibility here. And Stuart, when you have the leader of a nation using chemical warfare on its people, what would you do? We're parents. I would flee. Then you have ISIS forcing, taking young women, taking wives and people and raping them, holding them hostages. Yes, and people that don't want to live like that.
It was President Obama
and President Obama, even with ground troops, we weren't going to stop what is happening in Syria right now.
He put down the red line and failed to enforce it. He evacuated from Iraq and in came ISIS. Those things happened. The original fault is President Obama's foreign policy. And he failed completely to even address the idea of safe zones, which we could have established, or a no-flight zone. He would not do it. The responsibility is partly President Obama.
I don't agree. When you look at ISIS, that is a break-off from al-Qaeda. One could argue it was that we invaded the sovereign nation of Iraq that started that. One could argue that these power-hungry people were going to be there again, regardless of whether we're in Iraq, when we left Iraq, if we left Iraq. We are looking at a situation in this country that has two problems in Syria. You have its leader, and you have one of the things what everyone agrees on is the Sunni Muslims have to be the ones to take out ISIS. They can't have the United States and the rest of the international community with the American flag leading the way. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I don't agree with you that he is held to blame. He is held to blame for these people that are angry, like you said, second or third generation people who feel disenfranchised, whether educated or not, and feel they don't have opportunity.
Why did he call them the JV team? Why did he call them the JV team?
Because I think he wanted to puff out the chest of America, if you will.
Because he was totally wrong.
When you listen to military experts, they have all said, regardless of ideology, we can get rid of ISIS. That is not the issue. It's the bigger picture.
So why
how do we get rid of those who are being radicalized and self-radicalizing? How do you get rid of a mindset? How do you get rid of what's happening throughout the world on the internet and who they're reaching?
You will accept no responsibility on the part of the president whatsoever for what's going on in Europe right now? Nothing to do with us.
I don't say it has nothing to do with us, but I don't put blame on the actions of murderers who took the lives of 30 people on our president. And quite frankly, I wouldn't have put it on the blame of this president if he was a Republican either.
This started with the failure of President Obama's policies in Iraq and in Syria. That's where it started.
I don't agree with you. I think, to me, if we say that the president failed, then what are we saying about our military and the mission that they went and we have said accomplished in Iraq,
Every military advisor to the president said you can get in there and you can kill him in 10 seconds flat. They all said it. They all said you could take out the Assad regime. They all said it.
You believe we should have either carpet bombed
That's not what I believe.
or gone in.
I'm just telling you the facts of history.
Gone in with ground troops.
No, I'm just telling you the facts of history. Sorry, I am.
How would President Obama, what would President Obama have done that would have stopped what happened?
He could have stopped the Assad regime after it used chemical weapons on its own people. Having failed to do that, he could have established safe zones in Syria and Iraq.
And would that have stopped
those migrants? For those migrants who went to Europe
yesterday, no.
Yes, it would have stopped them. He could have stopped ISIS. He could have nipped it in the bud, but he described it as the JV team. Hands off. Can't do that. He is a failure. His foreign policy has failed, and he has some responsibility for what's happened in Europe. What do you, last point, sorry, I want 15 seconds. What do you make of the 51 seconds that the president devoted to the terror attack in Europe whilst he was in Cuba?
Well,
you happy with that?
Well, first of all, I don't want to do this, oh, George Bush thing, but we seem to be hung up on how much time did somebody wait before they stopped reading a story when we were attacked on 9/11? I don't think 51 seconds is enough to talk about the demise of people, but what do you expect him to do? Get on a plane? And
I would have
our
expected
nation
to
wasn't
address
attacked yesterday.
The disaster
One
which
of our
happened in
allies
Europe.
was attacked
yes,
yesterday.
exactly. And he gives 51 seconds to it?
51 seconds yesterday, yes. You don't think he needs to be prepped more? Originally, he just comes out and has to say something quickly, as any nation's leader does. How much time is enough?
Well,
what action is enough?
Totally wrong yet again, but thanks again. You sent me a bottle, a container of Tiffany cologne for Christmas.
Wait. Now we're talking about this on the air.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about this on the air.
That was very kind of you. Thank you very much.
Guys, how many times has he thanked me?
Leslie Marshall, you're all right. You can come again. Thanks very much, Leslie.
Thanks,
all right, next.